Roland Deschain, the primary protagonist of Stephen King's Dark Tower series, isn't just any wandering cowboy. He's a hero, obsessed with meeting his goal despite all the hardship, betrayal, and loss that he's faced along the way. But what keeps him going despite everything he's been through? The answer lies in his bloodline and the connections he's made along the way. Sounds intriguing, doesn't it? In today's marvelous video, we're diving into Roland's family tree and the key relationships that have shaped him into the legendary gunslinger he became. But before we get started, we have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's just a quick click for you, but it makes a huge difference for us. Thank you. Now let's jump on in. Roland comes from a long line of warriors, secrets, and of course, plenty of gunfights. While his family tree is vast, we're going to be focusing on the ones who had the biggest impact on his journey through the Dark Tower story. Arthur Eld. We're starting our list with the legendary founder of Gilead, Arthur Eld. Arthur Eld is the ancestor of Roland Deschain and King's Dark Tower's Arthur figure. His legacy connected Midworld's history to a mythic past, making him a pivotal figure. He was instrumental in being the perfect embodiment of an ideal gunslinger. Honorable, just, and devoted to the White, the force of order opposing the Crimson King's chaos. Arthur Eld was the true patriarch of the Deschain family and the ancestor of all true gunslingers. His lineage granted Roland his unmatched skills, relentless drive, and deep link to the Dark Tower. Resembling the original King Arthur, Stephen's Arthur Eld also wielded Excalibur, which Eld later reforged into Roland's revolvers. Envisioned as a regal, imposing figure, Arthur Eld had sharp, hawk-like features that defined Roland's lineage. His descendants inherited his piercing blue eyes. He radiated wisdom and had an almost supernatural intensity. Talking about his abilities, Arthur Eld was the first great gunslinger. He had effectively mastered swordplay and early firearms, founding the order that later became Gilead's warriors. His skills likely exceeded Roland's as he united the Midworld under the White's influence. Arthur Eld perfectly embodied the highest ideals of the gunslingers: duty, honor, and unwavering devotion to Ka. If we speak about his significance in the Dark Tower series, Arthur Eld was more than Roland's ancestor. He effectively symbolized Midworld's golden age when the White was powerful and extremely strong. His legendary story surely contrasted Roland's lonesome journey, truly emphasizing the decline of the world. His amazing legacy endured, and his sword became Roland's guns. His lineage fueled the gunslingers, and his name represented honor like no other. Like King Arthur, his tale is one of glory and loss, yet his ideals remained persistent throughout Roland's relentless pursuit of the Dark Tower. Sir Kay Deschain. Kay Deschain is undoubtedly an ancient and prominent figure in Roland's family tree. He was one of the first original knights of Arthur Eld, and through him, Arthur Eld could continue his lineage. Allow us to explain. Sir Kay stood tall in the ancestral chain, embodying the qualities of loyalty, responsibility, and their fate-bound purpose. He never had a very integral role to play in the books, but his presence in the bloodline demonstrated how deeply Roland's heritage was knitted with Arthur Eld's legacy. There is minimal information about his appearance as a Deschain, yet we know he had distinctive traits similar to Roland's bloodline. He had striking, sharp, predatory features which were seen in Roland. He had the family's intense blue eyes, a chiseled jaw, and a face of struggle and nobility. He would have dressed in their traditional attire, which was a sturdy leather gun crossed at his hip, a very long coat, and boots that were worn out for many years, which made endless journeys across harsh terrain. Sir Kay was multifaceted. He was a distinguished warrior of regal descent, extremely skilled in the gunslinger's art. He excelled in wielding swords, horsemanship, and the effective strategic wisdom required to govern in Midworld's declining age. Personality-wise, Sir Kay Deschain would have been a man of unwavering determination and volition who had a steeled will like those who carried the blood of Eld. He was a teacher and keeper of ancient knowledge, bravely passing down the sacred ways that would flow through Roland's veins. We know he thrived in the shadows of history, but Kay would have represented the rich tradition that would have humbly rested upon Roland's shoulders as the final gunslinger to walk Midworld. Emmanuelle Deschain. I think you probably remember that I told you Sir Kay was responsible for carrying on Arthur Eld's bloodline. This was done through his daughter, Emmanuelle Deschain. Emmanuelle was one of the gillies of Arthur Eld and also the one who bore him a child, as his queen Rowana was barren and incapable of delivering an heir to the throne. This action helped Arthur's lineage to extend another 29 generations, all the way to Roland's father, Stephen Deschain's generation. In other words, you could say that Emmanuelle Deschain is Roland's great to the power of infinity grandmother, and Sir Kay is his greater to the power of infinity grandfather. Apart from that, Emmanuelle has emerged as a unique feminine presence in Gilead's male-centric regal bloodline. Although her actions and deeds remain mysterious, her existence was pivotal and clearly demonstrated that the Deschain legacy drew its power from the formidable women's influence on kings and gunslingers. She had the exact telltale Deschain features: striking blue eyes, an aristocratic bearing, and an innate fortitude. Emmanuelle's attire balanced ceremonial elegance with practicality. She was a woman who understood both privilege and perseverance. Emmanuelle also had an impactful presence in court politics and ancestral preservation. Like Roland's mother, Gabrielle Deschain, Emmanuelle was a powerful voice among Gilead's gunslingers. She offered unthinkable wisdom and guidance. Emmanuelle worked openly in politics or through subtle influence, upholding the Deschain virtues of acceptance of cause path, loyalty to duty, and personal sacrifice. Stephen Deschain. The Dark Tower series features Stephen Deschain, Roland's father, in a pivotal role. He was one of the last true gunslingers and Gilead's leader. He served as a protector and a true mentor. He trained Roland in the gunslinger's way, instilling discipline, strategy, and a keen and deep understanding of Ka. Stephen looked a lot like his son Roland, tall and broad-shouldered and hard to miss. He had those same intense blue eyes that felt like they could see straight through you. With a thick mustache and a quiet, commanding presence, he carried himself like a true leader. And of course, he wielded the same legendary guns that Roland would one day inherit. Stephen was a master gunslinger and ranked among his era's greatest warriors. His revolver skills were unparalleled, and he excelled in tactics and strategy. Beyond battle, he ruled with wisdom. Stephen was a disciplined and stern man who was shaped by his duty and had the whole burden of his lineage. He sternly raised Roland, understanding that his son must be strong enough to endure the crumbling world. He still had this profound love for his family, especially for his wife Gabrielle, which ultimately sealed his fate, as her betrayal with Martin Broadcloak ultimately led to his tragic downfall. Mordred Deschain. Mordred Deschain is a uniquely tragic character in the Dark Tower series. He was born of Roland Deschain and the Crimson King through extremely supernatural means. A monstrous fusion of a human and a spider, he represented Roland's legacy and the taint of his bloodline. By birth, Mordred was a strikingly beautiful human child with extremely attractive, piercing blue eyes. Yet surprisingly, his truest nature resembled that of a monstrous spider who inherited the Crimson King's terrifying traits. As time passed, his human body seemed to weaken, and he was increasingly forced to depend on his grotesque arachnid form. Mordred wielded immensely powerful psychic abilities, allowing him to read minds and easily manipulate others. His monstrous form granted immense strength, while his insatiable hunger for human flesh drove him to perform terrifying acts. But even after everything, despite his formidable power, his instability and reckless nature ultimately brought about his tragic downfall. His dual nature caused Mordred immense struggle as a gunslinger and an abomination. He despised his human heritage, especially Roland, yet he distortedly craved his father's recognition. His arrogant nature and thirst for power made him oblivious to his flaws. Ultimately, his fate was sealed when Roland killed him with Oi's warning and sacrifice. The Crimson King and the Crimson Queen. That's right, one of the most powerful beings in the Dark Tower universe, the Crimson King, and his mother, the Crimson Queen, share a common bloodline with Roland. How, you might ask? Well, the Crimson King is Roland's distant half-uncle. He was born from the illegitimate relationship of King Arthur and the Crimson Queen. I mean, that's pretty wild. How did that happen? Well, it was all Merlin's trick. He went to King Arthur for a peace treaty in his human form, but it was all his plan to destroy him and his men under the guise of a friendship. But Merlin wasn't alone in his mission. He also took several monsters from the Prim in human form to accompany him, and the Crimson Queen was one of those monsters disguised in human form. There is limited information on what the Crimson Queen looks like in her true form. However, according to the books, she's a shadowy entity with an enigmatic nature. She possesses the power to influence time and reality. With that power, the Crimson Queen seduced King Arthur to physical intimacy before the monsters revealed their original form and were then driven away by Arthur's men. Back to the Crimson King again, the Crimson King is depicted as a demonic entity with red eyes. He also has a monstrous grin and in some instances appears in several symbolic forms to deploy chaos. The Crimson King holds immense powers, such as manipulating reality and summoning dark forces. He also uses telepathy and mind control to make his minions obey his commands. The power-hungry Crimson King has but one megalomaniacal obsession in life: to destroy the Dark Tower and reign supreme over this realm. This was all about Roland's family tree, whose inherited qualities helped him immensely in carrying on his mission to repeatedly reach and protect the Dark Tower. However, during his journey, Roland also meets many other characters who contributed significantly to his character arc to reach the top of the tower. Susan Delgado, Roland's first and greatest love. Susan Delgado was indeed a pivotal character in Roland's past. She was his first true love in their tragic yet formative romance. Her unfortunate death left a lasting scar on his soul, which shaped his emotional growth and future relationships. Her tragic loss reinforced Roland's belief that Ka demanded sacrifice, deeply influencing his journey and intriguing choices. Susan and Roland's indelible love story was central to Wizard and Glass. She had met him when he and his original quartet members, Cuthbert and Aileen, arrived in Hambry on a mission. During their meeting, Roland was only 14 and Susan was only 16. Though she was promised to Mayor Thorin, she eventually fell in love with Roland, which led to a doomed romance. An extremely jealous witch known as Rhea the Coos hated Susan and plotted a conspiracy to label her a traitor and get her burned alive by the locals. Through this event, Roland got the biggest, most important lesson of his life: love brings loss, which hardened him into the isolated, relentless gunslinger that we know. Susan was by far one of the more attractive characters. She was strikingly beautiful with golden tresses, bright gray eyes, and a youthful glow that enchanted Roland immensely. Her natural elegance and fiery spirit set her apart in Hambry, making her unforgettable as a character and a woman of substance. Susan was an incredible person, kind, strong-willed, and full of passion. She had a rebellious side and wasn't one to follow the rules, but she always stayed true to her family's honor. Her love for Roland was real, which made what happened to her even more heartbreaking. Aileen Ritter, the unfulfilled love. Aileen Ritter was featured in the Gunslinger Born comics. She was Roland's bosom childhood friend, and she admired him deeply. Totally unlike Susan, Aileen showcased the true spirit of a gunslinger. She was fiercely determined to prove herself in a world dominated by men. A true romance never blossomed, yet Aileen symbolizes a path where Roland could have loved someone who had shared his gunslinger calling. Roland kept Aileen as a friend, though she could have been more than that. Aileen was extremely attractive, and she shared the classic Deschain traits, which were indeed interesting. She was keen, had beautiful, intelligent eyes, and a resolute, confident stance. She preferred a unique gunslinger attire over traditional feminine clothing. She defied societal norms and was always embracing her own path. Aileen had an indelible personality. She was strong-willed, independent, and determined, but also reluctant to abide by any restrictions placed on her due to her gender. She often strived to earn recognition as a true gunslinger. Her warm bond with Roland was built on admiration, respect, and unspoken heartwarming affection. Next, we have the members of Roland's spiritual family, the second quartet members. Roland's quartet, or spiritual family, transformed into his true family, which was definitely not bound by blood but by Ka, fate, and their shared quest for the Dark Tower. Although his nature was hardened, these bonds revealed his rare moments of vulnerability, reminding him of his lost humanity. Yet, Ka is unforgiving, and each member of his quartet faced unforeseen tragedy. This reinforced the relentless sacrifice cycle, effectively shaping Roland's nature. Eddie Dean, the brother Roland never had. Eddie Dean was once a heroin addict from 1980s New York. He had become a skilled and reliable gunslinger in Roland's spiritual family. He was acting as Roland's surrogate brother, and he somehow balanced Roland's cold pragmatism with ideals such as loyalty, humor, and warmth. Eddie was one of the few characters who truly challenged Roland. He balanced his duty-driven mindset with humanity, love, and humor, yet beneath his sarcasm laid wisdom and a refusal to let Roland lose himself. They had a very brotherly and complex relationship. Roland effectively manipulated him whenever he needed, yet somehow he learned and grew to see himself as an equal to no one different. Eddie suffered a tragic death when he was shot by someone called Pimley Prentice, which seriously broke Roland. This reinforced Roland's belief that he was doomed to walk alone and be alone. Eddie was lean and had sharp features. He had a mischievous look and a charming, quick wit. His sarcasm was an amazing defense mechanism against pain. Although he was an addict in the past, he ultimately rose to become a formidable gunslinger and a true leader. Susannah Dean, sister, warrior, and wise soul. Susannah Dean is one of the most deeply complex members of the Quartet spiritual family. She was born Odetta Holmes, an educated black woman from the 1960s. She also harbors another personality known as Detta Walker, a fierce alter ego forged by racism and trauma. After merging her two identities, she transforms into a fearless warrior and Roland's surrogate sister, Susannah Dean. The significance of Susannah in Roland's life is very intriguing. Susannah is both Roland's sister and conscience. While Eddie characteristically used humor to challenge Roland, she, in turn, used countering logic and some emotional depth. She can see through Roland's manipulations, but unlike others, she left Roland's group as she didn't want the same fate as the other members while pursuing the Dark Tower. Her leaving is one of the few times Roland lets someone go, proving he's learned that not everything must be sacrificed for the Tower. Susannah is indeed an attractive, striking black woman. She exudes elegance and inner strength. She's intelligent, headstrong, and compassionate. She somehow knows how to balance tenderness with deadly precision. She's a master of firearms and a formidable gunslinger. She was resilient in overcoming the loss of her legs before entering Midworld, which only strengthened her determination. Jake Chambers, the son Roland could never keep. Jake Chambers was a boy from 1970s New York who became Roland's surrogate son. Fate drew him to Midworld, and their inexplicable bond is one of the series' most tragic. It was shaped by love, loss, and destiny's cruelty. Jake idolized Roland as a father figure from the moment they met, and Roland genuinely cared for him more than even he would admit, which is very interesting indeed. Their special bond is marked by love and betrayal, as Roland sacrificed Jake to fall into Cyclopean Mountains so that he could continue his journey. Jake's unfortunate and tragic death to save Stephen King, breaking the fourth wall to complete the rest of the story, is one of the series' most heartbreaking moments. This sacrifice left Roland in unbearable grief, which is inexplicable. Jake really stood out with his blonde hair, sharp eyes, and a level of maturity that was way beyond his years. He was crazy smart and had a strong moral compass, always picking up on things others missed. And even though he was just a kid, he never hesitated in battle, proving he was every bit a gunslinger. Oi, the most loyal companion. Oi was a Billy Bumbler. He was as much a member of Roland's Quartet spiritual family as any human. Intelligent and fiercely loyal, he often shared a deep bond with Jake. His unfortunate and tragic fate is one of the story's most heartbreaking losses. Oi's significance is unparalleled. He truly embodied pure, unwavering loyalty. While others would often doubt Roland, Oi followed him without any question. His inexplicable bond with Jake was indeed very profound, mirroring his emotions and serving as his protector. After Jake's unfortunate death, Oi refused to leave his side. He was mourning with heartbreaking sorrow. Yet, in the final battle, he sacrificed himself to save Roland, proving his devotion to the end. His tragic loss delivered another painful lesson that everyone Roland loves will ultimately be taken from him. Oi was a small fox or raccoon-like creature. He has keen, gold-ringed eyes and a unique ability to mimic speech in short phrases. He was small in size, but he was courageous, resourceful, and deeply devoted to his quartet. His amazing intelligence and unwavering loyalty definitely make him far more than just a pet. He's a true companion and protector. Despite the deep-rooted bonds they share, Ka is definitely merciless. One by one, Roland loses them all, which cements his destiny as a solitary wanderer on the path to the Tower. Their tragic deaths and departures leave lasting scars, shaping him into a man who has lost everything except his quest. With each loss, pieces of his humanity are definitely stripped away until nothing remains but his relentless pursuit of the Tower, the only constant in his life. Marvelous verdict! Well, folks, that's all from our side. We did a complete exploration of Roland's family tree and his closest relationships, but we've got some bonus information for you. Did Roland have a brother and a sister whom he never knew? Well, there is an article where King confirmed that Roland has a sister named Clarissa Deschain and a brother. However, their storyline wasn't explored in the books. But if we had to guess their abilities, roles, and sibling dynamics, then we would say that his brother would have Roland's features and could have been a rebellious gunslinger, possibly helping him in his quest to reach the Dark Tower. We consider Clarissa, she could have been that pure and pious protective sister who prayed for Roland's safety on the journey. Well, those are our thoughts at least, and we might be extremely wrong or incredibly luckily correct. Either way, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Till next time, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.